Okay, I'm going to go over the Fuji X100T, some of the personal settings. Some of them will be personal and subjective. The other ones will be very logical and something you should definitely consider. In no particular order right now, I'm going to cover up this. I have not done it yet with gaffer's tape. The LED, which flashes red and orange, is way too bright, something Fuji needs to fix for the next iteration of the X100T. Cover that up with gaffer's tape. It is very annoying and certainly should be covered up for street photography, any photography in general. That's not that important, obviously. So we need to go into autofocus settings and shooting menu number 1. This should be on. And what we're going to do is we're going to go down to corrected autofocus frame. The default for this is off. What corrected autofocus frame does is obviously your lens is right here, if you can see the other side of the camera, and my optical viewfinder is up here. And the issue with that is in optical viewfinder mode, it will not show you the correct autofocus point and will not show you the correct framing. We have an issue with parallax. So what this does is correct for parallax. So when you actually are focused in on an object, whether it's near or far, like if it's actually very near, if you're looking through the optical viewfinder, when you have pressed the shutter with this on, and this is not on by default, when you press the shutter halfway, the entire frame will shift to where you are actually taking the picture because your lens is here and your optical viewfinder is up here. So that is what corrected autofocus frame does, is it corrects for the parallax of the fact that the lens is here and your optical viewfinder is up here. This is an issue with any rangefinder camera, but this is the correction that you're actually seeing when you're in optical viewfinder mode. And this should be default by on, but it's not. From the factory, the default on it is off. Okay. Image quality, I don't know why you're buying an expensive camera like this and like shooting constantly JPEGs. I always shoot fine plus raw regardless whether it's a Fuji or a Nikon. On your Q button settings, we need to go into Q mode here. I have a silent mode. Put that in your Q button settings, which is in setup 2. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go into setup, shooting menu right now, and I'm going to setup mode 2, and then I'm going to edit and save my quick menu. And what this does is it lets me edit my buttons for my Q menu for fast access. And one thing that I have included in here, two things that are not in there, is the silent mode, which makes everything just insanely silent. This is the quietest camera out there. This camera will scare you, it's so quiet. Another thing that I've added back here is manual focus assist or focus peaking. Like indoors, bright white illumination is perfectly fine for focus peaking. If you step outdoors, like a beach scene, I'd want to switch it to blue bright focus peaking. I always use bright regardless. You could choose red or blue or white. White is not so good when you're out on a bright beach, so you want to choose another color like a red or blue. I find that blue works best, and so that's why I have a manual focus assist back there in my Q menu. And go to setup, number 2, edit, save, quick menu, and that way you can add whatever you want into your Q menu for quick access and quick change. Another important thing. Let's go into menu. Okay. Long exposure noise reduction. If you do anytime exposures, the default for it is on. If you do anytime exposures, it is a giant crotch pain if you have long exposure noise reduction on. I really see absolutely no damn benefit to having it on. I've found none. So I've turned it to off because it gives me zero advantage, and when you go to take a time exposure, it will sit there and process and process and process, and you think you got like a 30-year-old digital camera in your hands, which digital cameras don't really go back 30 years, but I mean, it is just radically slow, and it's just stupid, and I found absolutely no advantage in it at all. As I already said, in the manual focus assist, you want to choose white for most things, but outdoors, you want to choose a bright, different color like red, or specifically blue for like a high contrast, really bright sunny day or hitting the beach. Another thing that is important, and I found this is personal, but to do the trick that I showed you the other day, I'm going to go to AEAFL lock. Now the default is for pressing, which right here at AEFL lock means you have to continue to hold to press it to activate it, and I have it set to switch or S, which means that I only have to hit it once and let it go and it will autofocus. You need to do that to enable the trick where you eliminate aperture chatter, as I showed you in a video yesterday. So I have that on lock, push to switch actually. Something else you always want to do, and this is really important on any Fuji, and this default is off, and that's pretty stupid. I can see reasons why to have it off, but basically none. What this does is interlock spot, focus, and area, so wherever it is that I'm focused on. This is also if I'm in spot metering and photometry, what I actually call matrix metering or spot metering or center weighted metering, what Fuji calls photometry. It means that wherever I am and whatever size it is, I'm going to meter off my autofocus point. So it is going to move wherever I am. So if I'm taking a shot, say at f4 or something like that, I can actually spot and refocus, recompose. Excuse me, not refocus, recompose. I could actually meter and recompose a little bit off, and it is an incredibly handy feature. I always leave that on because it is insanely handy. That's subjective, but I find that to be rather objective. I actually cannot think of only a few reasons why I would want that off, and that is off by default. Function buttons. Instead of actually going into your menu, going here to change your function buttons, what we can do is just hold our display back button down for a couple seconds, and we could set it. Now the default for the function button up here is for movie, and I'm not interested in using this damn camera as a movie camera, so I've changed this function button. I found to be super duper handy, changing that function button to ISO. I've changed my top function button to flash, flash on, flash off, external flash, force flash. Over here I actually have the type of metering, whether it's single or multi. And over here I actually have an autofocus point where I can actually shift, hit the button, and then move my autofocus point around. The bottom button I actually have set to turn on my neutral density filter. And function number 6 is my photometry, which is the trash can button, the second button up from the bottom. This button right here I've set to photometry, which is spot metering versus matrix metering, or what they call multi. And I'll show you that. Just hit the button multi, spot, average. And then I've changed this to switch my shutter between electronic shutter, mechanical shutter, or M+E. Shooting menu, display custom settings. Let's go into that shooting menu number 3. Isn't it? Yeah, it is display number 3, yeah. Yeah, display custom settings. You have the choice here what you could change and what you view through optical viewfinder or electronic viewfinder. Go into electronic viewfinder, incredibly handy, and everybody should have it added, even though it's not by default, is histogram. Everything else here is factory default, so I added histogram. I already mentioned adding a soft shutter to my Q button. There are a couple things that should be here under your Q button, which should be called by Fuji. This is what the button should be called. It should be called the magic button. Instead of having to go in the menu and screw around the menu, just hit wah, the magic button, Q button. And why they called it Q, I have no idea. It's kind of stupid. They should call it the M button for magic. I've added some things that should be in here, but which are not, like peaking, as I said, and a silent mode. I added my movie mode here, and I don't need my damn movie mode up here. I'm not going to use this thing for movie. My microphone level adjust here. I added advanced filter mode here, white balance, custom select, select custom settings, which I only have 2 custom select settings. You do have a built-in actual physical 3-stop ND filter, which is where I actually reprogrammed this to turn that on, to flick it down in front of the image sensor. The leaf shutter limitations, by the way, is 1/1000th of a second at f2, 1/2000th of a second at f2.8, and 1/4000th of a second true high-speed leaf shutter sync between f4 and f16. Something that you should consider adding, my flash Q trigger lives on top of my hot shoe now, because why the hell would I ever take it off? It's nothing. It's like a little wart on the camera. Incredibly useful. There's just no damn reason for me to ever take it off. Another thing considering buying is that you get a center pinch lens cap. That metal lens cap that's very expensive and falls off really easy, and you'll lose it. Never use that damn thing that comes with this camera. You have to buy 2 things to add this lens hood. You actually have to buy the lens hood. You can buy an off-brand one for like $10 on eBay. This is the expensive Fuji one. is this adapter. What you remove is the little front bezel, which is very, very thin, like a thin O-ring, and you remove that and you add this, and it extends at about 10 millimeters plus. I added an expensive, nice B&W protective filter on here, and so that's the things that I added. I'm also using, totally subjective on my part, the MHG X100. This is the grip attachment that gives you a swell right here, but also, since I showed you in a prior video, I ground this metal down right here, and what that lets me do is keep the hand strap on and yet able to open up my battery and my SD card door, and that is the absolute tits. Love it to death, because this to me is silk, sex, and sugar. Favorite hand strap in the world, totally my creation, and that makes me happy, happy, happy. And that is it. Those are some of the custom settings, and some things that should definitely, some of the things I said are obviously subjective. It's like, well, that's you. Other things, they should be on by default, and you may not even realize that they should be on by default, or what the hell they do. It's like, I had no idea my camera could do that. It's like, yeah, not only can it do that, but it should have been on by default from the factory. But it wasn't. But you can turn it on nice and easy and fast. Shazam! I grew up watching the Andy Griffith Show with my grandparents, right? Anyway, I appreciate you watching. I'm going to put my lens hood back on. I love this little camera to pieces. And they say about a person, they say, if you find somebody that hates everything, and he tells you he loves something to death, that is when you better listen. I am selling off my Fuji X Pro 2, because this fills that spot, and since I'm getting an XT2, probably two XT2s. I've already had my hands on an XT2, by the way, not for very long, but I know I'm going to be getting an XT2. So that's going to fill in the speed spot, and what this can do, the X Pro 2 cannot do, is obviously leaf shutter, and this fulfills the spot. I know this is nowhere near as fast for autofocus as the X Pro 2, but I don't have this camera, the X100T, for it to be a speed demon. I mean, I got other cameras that fulfill that niche, that hole. This fulfills something else the X Pro 2 nor any other Fuji nor any other Nikon can do, and that is be basically what Leica should have always made. And Leica could never come out with something like this. Leica ditched film too late in the game. Leica screwed up, and while I love Leica film cameras, I think their digital cameras absolutely suck. I mean, they just suck. This is what someone, if you're rolling back in the day and you sandpapered this off, and you're like, I'm going to take you to the future, dude. You're going to see something. I would sandpapered Fuji off right here. And it's like, oh my god, this is a Leica. This is exactly what Leica would make in the future. In the year 2000. I'd be like, no. Leica screwed up, and Fuji took their place, and now the people that used to shoot Leica film cameras, they shoot the same thing. People that love Leica, they own this thing, because this is a lot better than any Leica, which costs, by the way, a lot more, but is nowhere near as good as the X100T is. Definitely nowhere near as good. For a whole lot less money, no less. Just because something is expensive doesn't mean it's great. Also, this has a far better customer service than Leica ever did or does. Catch you later. Thanks for watching. Bye!